evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a rather special episode of Reptile Fight Club. My name's Nipper Reed, and I have the absolute pleasure to be cruising in a vehicle with the lovely Robert Stone, the even lovelier Eric Burke, the rather fabulous Dustin Graham, and your usual host, the inimitable Justin Julander. So tonight, if you forgive the background noises, as I say, we are cruising up and down looking for various reptiles. We're in wonderful Utah, which has been very kind to us. And tonight's topic is going to be about field herping. We're going to debate which is best, East Coast or West Coast herping. So if we could perform a coin toss, who's going to call it?
Dustin, you go for it.
All right. Tails.
Hey Siri. Hey Siri. Can you flip a coin?
It's tails.
All right, you win.
Nice.
So what's it going to be?
So,
In favour of...
do we want to do the flip, or
What's that?
do we want to flip flop?
which
You
side
get
you
to
want.
choose.
You get to choose, you're the
It's up
man,
to you,
you're under
yeah.
pressure.
Well, I will say, I am a fan of the West Coast, being from the West Coast, so I'm going to go with that.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, state your argument for why
Well, I'm going to defer.
you're going to defer.
He's gonna defer. So Eric and Rob, you guys go for it. Okay, well,
Hold on. Define the terms.
Okay. Can we give West Texas to the west? You guys can get like East Texas, Kansas, everything east of the Mississippi.
so you got like central United States
Yeah.
except for West Texas. Does that
Correct.
work? Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm going to start with this. Number one, we have crocodilians. Number two, we have indigo snakes.
Yeah. If we're limited to West Texas, correct. Okay, we'll take it. That's our split line.
Tag. That was
that?
No, what?
It was not a snake.
That was like a glow stick. Nipper's been partying out there. Well, I have heard both, and definitely they're different environments. I think the advantage that you have on the East Coast is that you are. There's so much cover. You know, if you are willing to put in the work, get out there and flip, you can find a tremendous amount of snakes in, a day of herping. Whereas, in my experience, herping on the West Coast, where you may find one example of a species.
Right. So I think maybe a way to frame that, right, is just that the carrying capacity of the environments of the East Coast seem to be higher, at least amongst animals that are above ground, so that we have a greater capacity to find them. There's the water, the inherent water in that situation just leads to an abundance of organisms in a way that we don't really have in the West.
Yeah, I think we can definitely concede that because we definitely have a seasonality out here in the West. We have to wait until the right times of year, like May. Yeah, May's always tricky because you want to schedule like 5 different herp trips because that's about the only time you can get good herping in some of these places. I mean, you can find stuff other times, but yeah. And even in the best situation or circumstances, you can get skunked like we did in southeastern Utah. But I think I've always been a desert rat. I think Dustin would fall into that category as well.
Yes, definitely. Definitely a desert rat.
So we have a little bit of a preference for that maybe, and it's a little more open, a little more visible. You can see stuff kind of a ways off and be able to road cruise and things like that. You don't have to be searching through tick-infested woods to find your targets. So I think that's one benefit we have in the West Coast.
Yeah. And I mean, you guys may have crocodilians, but we have a wide variety of rattlesnakes. And I mean, what is more American than a nice rattlesnake?
an American alligator.
I was just about to say, and
Right,
Justin
Timber.
and Dustin have clearly won the argument.
And I mean,
I will
yes,
concede that.
Timbers and eastern diamondbacks as the quintessential. Well, I love the Montane rattlesnakes, and they're my favorites. I would say that the quintessential American rattlesnakes, at least with throughout American history, have been the timber and the eastern diamondback.
Because they're on the flags.
And
Tread on me.
yeah, that's true. And the eastern diamondback is the largest species in the United States, so you kind of score a point for impressive size. But I don't know, diversity, definitely West takes the pick there.
Yes, I will concede that.
and you guys might be able to get out and flip board lines, but I mean, what's better than hiking up something in situ in this, like, what we've been in right now, this crazy red rock cliffs and just this beautiful scenery. Not only are you going to get out and enjoy the reptiles, but you get to enjoy nature, you get to enjoy birds, fish, anything that you can find.
Well, we do have birds, and we do have fish.
Yeah, but if you're just going to a board line and flipping boards, I mean,
Well, yeah, I will give you that, but I don't know if it's necessarily the herping that I've done has been exactly the same, except I would say it's almost harder, because I feel that you have heat.
I wonder if this is. Sorry, we're coming up on some stopped vehicles, but we don't know if they're herping or just stopped. Looks like they're just stopped. Darn it. Okay, sorry, go ahead, Eric.
I can edit that.
No, that's part of it, right?
Yeah, I most of the herping that I have done in the U.S. Has been, on the East Coast, has been hiking like through the Pine Barrens, up in the Poconos. I don't really do the board flipping thing, but yes, it is quite prominent in the East Coast. Probably more so, I would say, than what I've seen in the West Coast.
Well, I don't know. I would say there's some places in the West Coast where board lines are useful. Yeah, California. Yeah, I've heard some environments in California where if you didn't have a board line, you're not finding jack because it's so thick and lush, or it's dead, and so you got to have a board line there, or else you're not finding much. And other things, artificial cover in like up in the Pacific Northwest can also be very useful. Flipping rubber boas or something, or things out there. I think we can have some places out here with board lines that work pretty well, but for the most part, I don't know, hiking up that Lutosis yesterday, and again another one today, in the natural environment, just sitting there, it's hard to beat taking a picture of an animal where you would envision it being versus under a board. It's not the best photo opportunities. And then once you find something under a board, it's like you're taking a picture of it on bare dirt. There's not really much scenic place to take the picture, so it's kind of downside that way. But I guess that applies to both, as we've kind of gone over there.
We also have, although you have a diversity with rattlesnakes, we have the diversity with vipers, because we have rattlesnakes, copperheads, which you guys also
West
have
Texas.
here in the West. But we also have cottonmouths.
yeah.
I think overall you're going to get the entire reptile experience, from crocodilians to lizards to turtles to skinks to snakes to venomous. But I don't know. This is the question that I pose, and is it that I enjoy the West Coast because it's different than my backyard? And I would be curious, if that's why I enjoy coming here, because it's so different. But I still love my backyard.
I think, I've herped a little bit in the East Coast, so in Florida and Georgia I've gone out, and I think take a left here. I think the trick was, or the thing I didn't enjoy was all the you just get dirty and wet and gross, you know, like, and the desert's a little more clean, and I've always kind of liked cleaner herping. I wasn't really a fan of the mountains, but I'm kind of getting into that a little bit more. But, you know, when we're up in the mountains, we're falling in the rivers and stuff like that. So, again, as a desert rat, you know, the sand is pretty clean. Cheatgrass is the devil's seed, but what do? You know, you got to put up with some invasives, I guess. But that's a topic for another fight club. But, you know, I think that you get a little more messy, more ticks, things like that in the East Coast, I would think, would put a damper on herping to some extent.
To exaggerate Eric's point, certainly the amphibian diversity in the East Coast is way higher, particularly salamanders. So that's for sure. Myself, I'm also a desert person naturally, but I can certainly appreciate the value of the East Coast, and I feel a little bit personally attacked by several of the lines of argument here about walking up herps and ticks, because you are playing upon my predilection to dislike ticks and preferring hiking up critters. So I don't think you can garner those points solely for yourselves. As Eric highlighted, we at least relative to hiking, that's something that I'm also a fan of in either case. In terms of ticks, I would have solidly given that to you, except for the fact that today, while photographing a coach whip, I was attacked by several ticks.
I will say you were the only one who saw them.
No, Nipper saw it.
I would say attacked is a strong word.
Nipper saw it. If it's a tick, it's attacking. If it's a tick and it's on you, it's attacking.
I'd say minorly inconvenienced, maybe not attacked.
When we're talking blood-sucking ectoparasites, I'm not really up for debate on that one.
Did it burrow its head?
It was looking.
All right. I think the big benefit of herping in the West is more public lands. You know, in some like in West Texas, even. I mean, I guess that's part of us, but I'm gonna throw it under the bus for this part of the argument and lump it in with a lot of the East Coast, is that everything's private land, and so you're relegated to herping on parks and public places like that, versus out here where we have plenty of public land. We can herp wherever we want to some extent. You know, there is some private land, but a lot of open federal lands that you can go out and herp on to your heart's content. Whereas in the East, a lot of the East states, you're stuck on the roads or a few public parks, or
Pennsylvania and New Jersey have quite a few.
Yeah. I'm going to disagree with that. I mean, the Poconos itself, we have the Appalachian Trail that goes up the entire East Coast. I don't know. I kind of see it. I guess my bias is West Texas, but that was the thing that kind of bummed me out, is that there's so much land and you can't herp it because it's not public land. But
yeah, craning your neck on the side of the road was not very fun. But what do you do? Okay, we're going to pause for station identification, and we'll be back with you in a minute. And we're back! Back on the road. All right. Do you remember where we were? Oh, private land, public lands, being able to herp. So, yeah. I don't know. I think that scores a point for the West Coast, but you may have different ideas.
Utah has more national parks than any other state in the country, right?
Oh, yeah. We got some good ones.
Okay. One thing that I do love about Arizona is that I'm a fan of reptiles from Mexico, and we do get a few species that are supposed to be tropical that we get down in the deserts and in just barely coming up into the United States, and I think that's a pretty cool point. The East Coast, I mean, other than the invasives, has American endemics, and we get a little bit of the tropical stuff coming up. Something you don't get to see every day.
If you can find them.
If you can find them.
We spent a long time looking for those pine snakes and craning our necks up in the trees, but it took me about a couple days in Costa Rica, and one found me pretty easily. So a lot easier to find out in the tropics versus otherwise. But all right, well, you guys got another point point of contention for the East Coast? He wants you to just pass it. Yeah. we're just starting to cruise. We're out looking for sidewinders tonight, so hopefully they're not going to follow us too closely.
I noticed how they took that little shot and said that the West Coast is better with the sidewinders. Well played, sir. Well played.
Heck yeah. I mean, what snakes sidewind that are in the United States other than on the West Coast? So
I can't argue with that one. I will have to give you the point.
This is interesting habitat. It's like really brushy or something. Yeah, I think we just kind of follow this road and see if we can see something.
Turn something up.
They said it's mostly neighborhoods, but yeah, they just found a cow king on this road, so that's kind of cool.
That
So
wasn't
I didn't think so.
There's a front.
Toad. Apparently, Dustin doesn't let us stop for toads, so he just hates those amphibians. So he just
That's why he hates
Totally.
that's why he hates the East Coast.
Now we know. Wait, we do have hellbenders.
Oh, good point. Well made, Eric.
Mic drop.
That was a low blow, man. Is that something?
I had to come back from the sidewinder.
I will say, there's a few East or West Coast locations that are top herping destinations of the world. Southern Arizona comes to mind. West Texas comes to mind. West Texas is the Mecca of field herping.
You can go check
There's
That's paint.
Oh, we're having fun here. And we're back. But yeah, I mean, West Texas there's a whole culture around finding alterna. I mean, it's like I said, it's the Mecca. What's that on the left? Oh, pink.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we were out in southeast Utah and we were looking for the midget fader rattlesnakes, Critalis concolor, and didn't find any, and we were out looking today for Gila monsters and struck out. Man, there are a lot of cans on this road. So we didn't see any of those either, but we saw some fresh tracks, and it kind of gets your heart racing and gives you hope. But I think I was thinking if it was easy to find them, nobody would really care about them. Kind of along the same lines of the alterna, it becomes like a cult thing. You want to go find this hard to find animal and kind of have that prestige or that experience of finding that animal. It's kind of makes it exciting once you finally get that white whale or whatever you're chasing and things. So I don't know, that's part of the fun of herping, I think, to be able to find stuff that's hard to find or keep trying even when you're unable to find it. So nothing.
I guess I would say, I don't know what else that I can
I think
use.
on the East Coast, particularly the Southeast, you have a much longer season of potential activity, where at least there's some time of day that you could potentially find basically any species that you're looking for. Mm-hmm. In a way that is clearly not the case out here with our concolor experience, where we've had a ton of rain out here. The conditions seem perfect. We're in not only good general habitat, but very good specific habitat. And there's just no snakes going at all. I think we're probably 2 or 3 weeks early. But it's difficult to split that with then Gilas that you're trying to, where May is the perfect time.
I'm going to take you with me. We're going to look at this toad. I forgot we're recording. Oh, cool. It's a little spadefoot. Is that a Great Basin?
Yeah.
Okay, let's pause this. Okay, they were just saying the East Coast had so much better amphibians, but we just saw some pretty freaking cool amphibians. Woodhouse's toad and a nice little spadefoot toad.
Is Nippers highlighted? How many salamanders do you have here in the state of Utah?
An amazing salamander.
Who needs more when you've got such a cool salamander?
Salamanders are cool. That's true. But
there's some really cool. That's definitely a point for the East Coast, but who's into those snot lizards anyway? I don't know.
How very dare you?
To go off of Rob's point a bit, I think that the windows open a little bit longer, and I think that because there is no cover, your herping is really limited to, the evening or the early morning, where herping in the East Coast, you could pretty much go all day and night, because there's a lot more cover. Yeah, and the temperature may be a little along the same lines, and the humidity may be more. Yeah, you may get dirty, you may be wet, but you're going to be able to be out in the field and possibly see. It's probably why you get such a high count of snakes on the East Coast.
Way fewer ticks.
But not zero.
That is true.
Not zero.
That is true. Well, there's a real easy way to get around the ticks. Wear a long sleeve shirt.
Herp the West Coast.
And, you could do that too. And then tuck your pants in your boots. You'll be all right.
I got another, response for your bragging about all the salamanders and about all the turtles and stuff. We've got Heloderma, and we've also got the horned lizards. You don't got much in that area, right?
That's a West Coast.
That's one thing.
That's very true.
I love the West Coast lizards. I mean, with your invasives, you got some cool diversity, but our natives are pretty cool, man. Scalopers are awesome.
Yeah,
Collared lizards are awesome. Phrydosoma, awesome.
I can't argue with that.
They are cool. Tortoises too. I guess you guys have the one species, but we've got two species or three, because you got the desert tortoises split into two. We have snapping.
Oh,
They're invasive.
No. Are we counting invasives? Because we have pythons.
I guess if we're counting invasive, there was an invasive alligator in Arizona that lived in this warm hot springs area for quite a while. So I guess we can chalk up some crocodilians too.
I'm not sure a single animal counts as that.
Well, and
we also have crocodiles.
He was pretty stunted. Yeah, that's true.
What else do we got on the West Coast? We got. Go ahead.
The other thing I was going to say is, to Dustin's point, I will give him that there's many, many places in the West that is herping meccas, and people come from all around the world. But I think that when people think of one of the coolest biodiversities of the U.S., the Everglades has to be at the top of that list, and that's on the East Coast.
Well, I would take southern Arizona over the Florida any day, but that's just my preference. So I can't argue that Florida is not a cool place, but I mean it's been heavily modified. Again, there's only a few parks and places where you can go see kind of the natural order of things, whereas most of it's been turned into fields and that kind of thing, and flattened for homes and stuff like that as we drive through a neighborhood. But I guess that's happening everywhere.
I was going to say, didn't we just drive through?
Exactly what you're talking about.
And then we just hit a dead end. I'm not sure where we are, or where we need to go.
I'll go back this way and then take a...
Yeah.
The thing that I would say is that, for me, herping the West has been an awesome experience, because it's completely different than anything that I'm used to in my backyard, and it also showed me, I guess I'm giving this point to you guys, but showed me that what we have here right in the States is sometimes some of the coolest reptiles in the world, that people would come, like my buddy next to me on the left here, would come across the world to see them.
I completely agree with Eric. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to herp around the world, and I would keep coming back to the US. Now, I can't comment on this argument because I've only herped West Coast, not East Coast, but what I've seen on the West Coast is outstanding in terms of the different species, just the completely different habitats within a relatively close area. The only thing I will say is the food is terrible here.
Okay, beans and toast.
It's worth it for the herbs, but oh my days. But I mean, you know, when you're not herping, the scenery here is incredible. The massive open vistas and the rock formations. Yeah, just outstanding. I mean, I'll be able to comment further because I'm going to be going to Florida herping with these guys in a few months' time. But I'll be very surprised if Florida herping is as fully immersive and almost soothing as being in the desert.
Yeah, it's hard to beat the calm quiet of the desert with open skies, stars. It's wonderful out here. You guys might have invasive pythons, but we have 2 species of endemic boid, the rosy and rubber boa, in the west. So I would add that to the list of cool things that we have.
Point for
that you
the
do
west.
not have.
I told you this was going to be difficult for me.
Yeah, and I think there are fair good diversity of habitats. I mean, we do have some kind of rainforesty type stuff in the Pacific Northwest, where you can find a reasonable diversity of salamanders and things up there.
There's a great diversity of salamanders in Northern California.
Yeah, that kind of fits in that same niche and or nipper, and you've got all sorts of different biomes up in the mountains versus the deserts and things like that. So we've got quite a difference in habitats here as well. But I will say, the idea of seasonality is pretty strong in the West.
Yeah, I think like I said earlier, the temperature is a lot tougher out here for sure. So I think that the window to see it is a little shorter. But I would say that I think that if you're on the West Coast, you should check out the East Coast, because I've been on the East Coast and I came to the West Coast and came to love everything that's out here, because it's a different experience than what I'm used to. And I guess at the end of the whole thing, like I'm saying, the U.S. has some amazing reptiles that are some of the coolest in the world. And I think sometimes, at least for myself, I take it for granted because I'm too busy trying to see exotic locations rather than what's right here at home.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think we do that a lot, like I feel like I've done more herping in Australia than in my backyard in some ways. So it's been nice with the pandemic to kind of correct that and get out on these trips with you guys, and it's been a wonderful experience. I mean, we've seen a lot of cool stuff together, and it's been a lot of fun. So, and we might have to pause this to try to figure out where we need to go. Or this is just like a mess of neighborhood roads. So, one sec, let me pause this for a bit. All right, this program is being brought to you by Mutton Powerlifting Gloves. If you're going to lift some weight, use Mutton's Choice Powerlifting Gloves. Oh, I messed that up, didn't I? Mutton's Choice Powerlifting Gloves. The only gloves I use. Okay, I think another thing East Coast versus West Coast is the population density is much larger on the East Coast. Similar to like in Australia, I didn't enjoy herping the East Coast as much just because there's so many towns and cities and people, and you have to, spend an hour just getting out of town. Whereas if you go into Western Australia or Western, the United States, you're out of town pretty quick and you can get onto the business of herping instead of spending several hours driving outside of the city center or, rural areas that surround that. So I think, this is not the best road. I think the West Coast has that going for it, where it's a little more spread out, a little more wild lands, even though it's changing and developing more and more like the area we're herping in right now, which used to be beautiful habitat, but I guess there weren't roads going through it. But hopefully we can see something on a dirt road out here. Wouldn't be unheard of. Okay. But yeah, I think that's probably a point for the West Coast, is things are a little more spread out, less population density, less development.
Where?
Okay, one sec. And we're back. Do you care to respond to the population density, or is that just conceding a point?
I would concede that point. That is. I can't argue that. That's accurate.
Take a right.
I don't think that goes anywhere.
I think it connects up. Okay, thank you.
I mean, there are certain. I guess the one pushback, there are areas that you wouldn't expect. So, like New Jersey, actually, there's a lot more open space than I ever would have anticipated.
Go straight, yeah.
In the Pine Barrens specifically, which is obviously ideal habitat for all the critters that are in that region. So, I think generally that's true, and I appreciate that point. I think that's totally fair. But it's not as universal as I think we West Coasters presume.
Yeah, Pennsylvania is a pretty big state, and a lot of the population density is right in the southeast corner of Pennsylvania. And you do have a lot of open... What was that?
Little mouse.
Run, little mouse.
But I do understand the point, and I can't really argue with it.
Yeah, I mean, we do have our population, like LA is just one big giant mess of people, but yeah, outside of LA there's some really nice herping to be done. But you have to drive a few hours to get outside of LA. Is that those guys?
I think so.
Oh, they got something.
Oh. Looks like they're, yeah. What do they got?
They're getting out.
Yep. Jump out.
What's going on, guys?
Oh, cool.
What is it?
I don't know. Let's go see. Okay, we're stopping again. All right, we got a banded gecko. Very cool. It does look female.
Good enough for me.
All right, speaking of cool West Coast lizards, we just found a banded gecko. At least our group did. It wasn't our car. We got to find something, guys. Well, we found toads. That works. All right. Well, have we beat a dead horse? You got any more points for the East Coast? Anything else cool about it? What's that?
The same thing.
Oh.
No. I feel like I'm doing my home team disservice and letting them down, but yeah, I don't know. I got nothing other than what I've...
I think those are fair points. You got the numbers.
Potential for numbers, greater opportunity within a season, a little bit less specificity, a little bit less dead time, particularly down south. But yeah, I mean, all of us here certainly fully appreciate Western herping. I mean, heck, we're doing it right now.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against what we're actually in the process of doing. But okay, that's...
I hope to herp all over the U.S. to be able to have a better understanding of all the different environments and reptiles all over. And I feel like over the past couple of years, I've spent more time on the West Coast than the East Coast. But as Nipper said, we're about to do some proper herping in Florida, and hopefully we find some real cool stuff down there. So,
and Pennsylvania, I'm excited to come out to herp. Well, not Herp Fest. What's it called? Scarpa Fest? One of those things. I don't know. It's like, it's only 10 years old. I mean, it's not like some...
Or is it just the backside of this thing?
I'm not sure. So, yeah, that'll be fun to see see some of the East Coast stuff. But I mean, the lizard diversity, the rattlesnake diversity, boas, the ease of herping, the spread out and public lands that you can herp on, I think sum up nicely for the West Coast.
I just gotta say, the best place to herp is your backyard. Get out, enjoy nature, enjoy everything that it has to offer. I mean, all the cool animals, all the cool scenery, and just go.
Well said.
I think to Dustin's point, it's like if you spend the time herping in your backyard, quiet nipper. I know I have to do it more often.
Yes.
But you get to do it way, on a more consistent basis, and you get to see more of the seasonal changes or more behaviors that you might not have noticed. Whereas here we're getting a snapshot, at least for me, I'm getting a snapshot of this week of what it's like to be here out west in Utah, so yeah.
Yeah, we've had some pretty great experiences out here. I don't know if we want to maybe talk about a few, maybe hit the highlight of your trip so far. Rob, do you want to start us out?
Sure. Well, I mean, all the, it's tough. We've had a great experience just in terms of all the hikes, to Dustin's point earlier, really, really epic adventure type stuff, which I think is a big part of this, right? Especially if we had a specific target in Concolor over in eastern Utah that was the front half of the trip, and we were foreclosed from going at least via the north to the Grand Canyon for Abyssus. So the fact that we were able to fill our time with exceptional experiences that people do entirely separate from looking for animals really kind of makes that moment beyond just the joy of being with the group. That being said, I think my favorite, the pyros were certainly a favorite, and the two lutosis between yesterday and today, that light background with the real dark blotching on the back, really spectacular.
I will say that Rob plans a fantastic trip, and he will include a lot of really cool hikes, in suitable habitat where you can have the chance of finding the animals, but also if you don't find anything, you still have a fantastic hike and enjoy the nature and beauty around you. So kudos to Rob for planning another epic trip. Nipper, what do you think?
I can only echo what you've just said. Rob's planning has made this an unforgettable experience for me. Just, as you said, not even the herping, which has been excellent, but the other experiences, they're unrepeatable. It's just an amazing area, the scenery and the hikes and the canyoning and the stuff that we've got to do. It's memories for life. For me, species-wise, you know what I'm going to say, it's the Lotosus, particularly the second one that Justin found was just an absolute beast of a snake. Fabulous markings and in such a cool environment. And I really like the little toads. The spadefoot's really amazing. Even the spotted toads, which I know are fairly common, but for me, I've seen them in Arizona, I've seen them here. I think they're fabulous. At the end of the day, the best thing is always the company, though. And Wendy's root beer is my new drug of choice.
All right, Eric.
Pretty much for Nipper as far as the species go. Yeah, that second lutosis was amazing. And how Justin found it was pretty cool, as he thought a rock was a tortoise, and then he's like, "Oh, look, rattlesnake," which was pretty awesome. And to the other point, I've been on every herp trip with Rob except for one, and they just get better and better. And every time I have an experience that hopefully when I'm old I can look back on.
You are old.
Well, when I'm older, I can look back on and say, wow, that was a great time. Particularly going through that canyon.
Little wild horse?
Yeah, it was quite the experience, because for me that's something that it's so foreign to what I'm used to on the East Coast. So it's so magical for me to see that, and then dipping my feet in that cold water oh man, if you want to take away the pain in your feet, that's the way to do it. It was fabulous. Yeah, great trip, great guys.
All right, Dustin.
Lutosas are cool, pyros are cool, but I think that Utah Trimorphodon, I knew it was a possibility, but kind of didn't really think it's going to happen, but it did. But yeah, it's just been an awesome trip so far. I mean, I've only been on a few of these trips with these guys, but it's just always a blast. It's always fun. See amazing stuff, amazing company. Sometimes the food's pretty good, other than what Nipper says, but, you know.
We had burgers for breakfast.
That's why I said sometimes.
Yeah, I'd echo everything everybody said. I mean, isn't that where is that the dead end or no? We came here, yeah. It's just been a lot of fun, and we have a lot of laughs and just great times, and the canyons were epic. I mean, I grew up down here, so I've done a lot of this, and you know, it's always fun to kind of show people your backyard and give that, you know, have that experience together, and then you know, remember that down the road. So this is another just great example of that, and it was fun watching Dustin stay dry in Little Wild Horse Canyon, and even though I slipped on one part and stuck a foot in, so we tried to Spider-Man our way over the water. But it sounds like we should have just jumped in with Eric, because it was very soothing and spa-like. So next time, I guess I did wade through one part after my foot got wet. I'm like, oh well, I'm wet. So
did you have the opposite effect, where that's where your foot started to hurt?
I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah, my foot is still numb 3 days later, but I think it's getting better. Hopefully,
come
it's
out
getting
to the
better.
East Coast and dip your foot in our water, and you'll
There you go. There you go. I would. I just can't get over that Lutosis. That was really just a beautiful snake, so white and with the black head stamp and the really bold patterns, and so I think that was one of my favorites. It's also fun to see big lizards. So seeing the collared lizards, Dustin and I were driving along. We saw kind of.
They're out for something.
Oh man, why do we keep missing these things? Oh, they're just shining. But we spotted. I saw a lizard on a rock, and I'm like, oh, that looks like a collared lizard. So we stopped. Oh, 1 second, we're gonna communicate here.
Right.
We
That's
did.
probably worth noting.
Yeah. Okay. Dustin just said we did 28 miles looking for the Crotalus concolor for the
28 miles of hiking for Concolor.
28 miles of hiking. And so with through some really fantastic habitat, so it was not very painful.
Oh, it was enjoyable.
Yeah, it was really great. So we're gonna get out and go try to hike up a Sidewinder, which we've done that in California.
Yeah.
I almost stepped on one for crying out loud. But yeah, epic trip. Still have another day or two to go, and so should be one for the books for sure. So looking forward to the next one.
Wait, finish your collar lizard story.
Oh yeah, so I saw a lizard on a rock, and you can shut her down. So we get out of the car and we're running through the field going to see it, and Dustin's like, oh, it jumped down. I'm like, no, it didn't. It's still there. And he's like, wait, what rock are you looking at? And I was looking at a further rock, and he was looking at the closer rock. And there were two collared lizards, one on each rock. And so we ran past the first rock where that lizard dipped, and then we went to the second rock, and he was still up top. But then he left and ran, and then we didn't get him. But we came back to the first rock, and the female was just there at the base of the rock. So I reached down and picked her up, and we got some nice pictures. So that was kind of fun. Always cool to see Protophytus for sure. But yeah, so anyway, that's been another Reptile Fight Club, and I hope you enjoyed it despite all the interruptions and such. But check us next week, and we'll do this again. So thanks for listening. You got to have a tagline, Nipper.
I gotta have a tagline. Well,
yeah, you've been thinking. You gotta do Chuck proud here.
Okay, and my tagline will be, why are Twixes so small in America? They're half the size of UK.
Oh, really?
They are.
That is strange.
That is strange.
All right, don't buy an American Twix.
Don't buy an American
Buy
Twix.
European Twix. All right, thanks for listening. We'll catch you again next week.